And welcome in to the Week 4 wrap-up show. Doing some Week 5 waivers as well today. I'm your host, Ian Power. Fantasy 4-pack. Matt Vitale, Frankie Santiago. I think those are all the talking points. It's a wrap.
Is this the abridged intro?
Oh, yeah, no. Few words make sentence good.
Also, 3 and out.
Yeah, we're deep enough into the season now where we get the short and condensed intro card.
Yeah, by the end of the season, it's just going to be, hello! And
Also-
then just launching straight in.
Also, my mic was muted, so 3 and out. There we go. We've got that one too. But
Fortunately, a light news week. Unfortunately, the news that happened was bigger news. Nick Chubb going to be out 6 weeks, looking like he has an MCL sprain. Austin Ekeler going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a grade 2 hammy pull. We'll get to them in the waiver part of the episode. On some good news, though, no new COVID cases have been reported in Tennessee. So it's looking like they're, over the hump at least. The players that are COVIDified are going to be out for the foreseeable future. But they should be able to play Buffalo this week, so that's good.
that word is in the dictionary, by the way, COVIDified.
Yeah, and then on top of that, in typical NFL fashion, the NFL is investigating the Patriots for their COVID, their late COVID scandal thing. I
Are they
call
really?
it a scandal. Yeah, the NFL is launching an investigation into
Over
how
what?
them getting COVID. I don't know.
Are they like the Patriots sat Cam Newton this week? Why?
Yeah, like we sent cameras to get COVID rubbed on it, so we give Cam Newton it now, so he'll be immune for the playoffs.
Roger Goodell's just like, I don't know what they're doing over there, but it's suspicious. Cam Newton's out this week. What's his plan?
Yeah, this is basically just like when Bill started abusing the putting linemen on the line and declaring guys as eligible and whatnot. Yeah. The teams gonna be like, do I need to rub my stars full of COVID now to get them? Is there a play?
Guys, the obvious explanation for this is that Bill saw all the injury stuff happening, and he's like, shit, Cam might get injured. We got to get Brian Hoyer some reps.
Yeah, if there's one thing you can count on is that Pats always think Bill has some master plan behind every single stroke of, any movement, anything that happens on the team is because it's all part of the master plan.
It's just, I'm so tired of being investigated for random things. Like, why are we being investigated? All right. In other good news, Bill O'Brien was fired today. Yay! Shocked and appalled that this happened before Adam Gase got fired. But he was definitely on the short list of coaches that needed to get the hell out of Dodge, so...
Yeah, I'm just more upset this is not Gase getting fired, but I honestly kind of figured with him, his coaching was okay. I mean, they made the playoffs a few times, and...
But was that more a product of him or the fact that they had Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins?
Right. So my point coming to that was I figured he was more going to get fired as GM, and they were just going to put anybody... they're just open casting call for it because clearly anyone who's played Madden at least could probably do their job better than him. Like,
I feel bad for the next guy that gets that job because he's probably going to get fired in 2 years because Bill O'Brien gave away all of their first round picks for the next 2 years and like all of their good players.
Yeah, I mean, me and you have been talking about Bill O'Brien should have been fired since like
He's a terrible GM.
the other last time we went to Vegas.
He's a terrible GM. He's like an average coach with below average GMing, and he absolutely kneecapped that franchise. Like,
Yeah, they sent away a lot of first round picks.
yeah, see, this is all part of Bill's masterstroke. He didn't let Nick Casario go down there and be the GM, so now they're imploding. He cost Bill O'Brien his job. It's all part of the master plan.
I mean, honestly, Bill might have actually just like warned Casario, being like, "You don't want to be in that dumpster fire. That's all going downhill."
What if Bill O'Brien takes Adam Gase's job?
He's not. Bill O'Brien's not getting another. He might get another job as an offensive coordinator, but I don't foresee him jumping directly into another head coach job.
Fair enough.
What are you guys' outlook on the Texans from this point out from a fantasy perspective? Me personally, I'm a risk-averse guy. I hate all Texans now. I want them off my squads because I don't want to have to deal with Texans players trying to learn a new system mid-season. But
I Honestly, I'm not too worried. I think Watson's too talented to really get too hurt by this, and it was already as bad as it could be, I think. I see this basically. I think the fat's going to get trimmed on this team, so a lot of these wide receivers are going to just become nothing. It's just I think one wide receiver is going to show out and either maintain or get a little bump. So I personally think it's going to be Fuller, just because for some reason Cooks, even though he's a great receiver, just keeps bouncing from team to team, and they're just like, we'll use you a little bit, but you can go to your 5th team next year. But I think Watson's going to be fine. I think DJ has a chance to still be fine. And I think one receiver is going to be it. And it's just going to be a very simple offense. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a net positive for the team.
Do we know who's replacing him?
I have not heard as of yet, no. I imagine they're going to just have an interim head coach come in for the time being.
Yeah, they are probably going to play it a little safer and not kind of just go outside the box with anything. So I'm kind of in the same train of thought as Vitale. I think it's going to be...
If I had to still be behind one Texans player, it would probably be David Johnson, just because one, running backs are scarce anyway.
Yeah.
And two, running back is the easiest position to have consistency at. It's the least complicated offensive position. So, but I just sold Will Fuller today. I'm already off on Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb.
And just to kind of report it, because I did see it, so I want to make sure I got the name right. But they have named an interim coach. It's going to be Romeo Crennel.
Okay.
The associate head coach is just moving up to head coach.
That makes me even less interested in the offensive options then, because Crennel is a longtime defensive coach.
If you want to know how long, he's 73 years old.
Yeah, he's an old guy. He was around at the start. He was around at the start of the Patriots run.
Yeah, so the running back's gonna be great because he's gonna play some old school smash 'em up football.
Yeah. No, I'm not interested in. Yeah, I am out on. I'm sure there'll be a fine regular season. They've been fine to this point too, but count me out of that offense. I want nothing to do with that with that mess.
Hey, Crennel was a head coach for Cleveland and Kansas City.
He wasn't very good in either spot.
Yeah.
All right, you guys want to do a little 3 and out?
No.
Frankie, take us away with seeing as you are the most enthusiastic about 3 and out.
I do like the segment, and I like that I pretty much came up with the name. But the Dallas Cowboys, as your resident cowboy here, not super happy.
No, you're a Cowboys fan, not a cowboy.
I'm showing up to the next show with a cowboy.
I've never even seen you on a horse.
Regardless, or irregardless, I don't know what's proper there, but not super happy with 1 and 3. I mean, granted, we did play 2 premier offenses in the Browns, and it's not really looking great for us because our defense is not so much there. But I mean,
it's an interesting way of saying your defense looks like they could be beat by a high school's JV squad.
And it's an interesting way to see if the Eagles might actually be able to win the division and get the first overall pick at the same time.
Oh, that'd be so funny.
Either way. I mean, you might think that spells doom and gloom for Cowboys players.
Yes. Well, no.
Over the last 3 games.
Fans, yes.
Dak Prescott's averaging 41 points on 54 attempts and 475 yards per game. That's a pretty good fantasy day.
It's all right.
Over the same stretch, Amari's averaging close to 20 on 9 receptions at 106. You get that nice little bonus there. Zeke, not super high up there, but 16.5 on 23 touches, including receiving and rushing for 101. So, I mean, not really what I want to see from Zeke being, 3rd pick, but it's still a serviceable fantasy day. They have a lot easier matchups going forward with New York. Arizona's kind of like the one in there that I'm sketchy on, but then they have Washington and Philly.
Sketchy on how?
They have a pretty good pass defense. As far as, I don't think we're going to see a real boom week from, we haven't really seen one from Gallup. He's 23rd ranked receiver. But
yeah,
I think that it's not going to be an everybody booms week. It's going to be one person's kind of doing the show, and it might be a Cedric Wilson week again. Who knows? But I think that they're going to have a much better time as far as putting up numbers goes over those games. I think it's going to be them not playing from behind, but them kind of just torching teams, and then Zeke's numbers are going to go up because they're going to be running the ball a lot more. They're not going to have to throw from behind to stay in these games.
Yeah, I mean, Dak is on a ridiculous pace thanks to these games being such shootouts. I do expect that to come back to earth. I don't think he's going to end the season with 6,000 plus yards. Seeing how the record right now is 5,500.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be wild if he did that?
It would be nutty. He would have a lot of ammo to go into those meetings if he wants a new contract. So, no, I think the only thing I'm just confused on is just for me personally, also because I'm a Michael Gallup owner, is just the lack of balls going his way. He's got one of the best ADOTs this year, and he's fourth in ADOT, average depth of target, if you're not sure what that is. And he is out there on about 90% of their snaps, and 90 plus, and the ball's just not coming his way. I don't know if it's coverage. I don't know if it's him and Dak are just not in sync. It's a head scratcher, and that's why I think you see a lot of times he's the trade for target a lot. People he's got to boom at some point. He's gonna go off at some point, and it's just frustrating as an owner.
Little extra news that just came out 14 minutes ago via the Number Fire Twitter. Chargers Justin Herbert could win the starting job. Anthony Lynn was non-committal when saying who his starter would be.
That is dumb on so many fronts, especially when the kid comes out in 3 weeks, almost throws 300 yards straight. He was at 290, and that was off of 25, 28 attempts. He's showing he can do it. I was scared to put him in there. I understand you want to be slow with these, high round picks because you don't want to just throw him out to the wolves, but if he was looking a little sketchy, yeah, bring Tyrod back in, let him take the punishment, let him be the veteran presence there, and let the kid learn. But the kid's showing he can do it. So I think you're just going to kill his confidence if you pull him after playing well.
Yeah, that seems like a bonehead move right there. All right, Frankie, what are your other 2 3-and-outs?
Well, COVID finally happened. We saw with the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game, bye week postponed. So I think we're going to start to see more and more of that as far as, this week's matchups, obviously Cam's out for the Pats. Tennessee seems to be under control now. But I think that we're going to see more and more COVID pop up throughout the season because it's just going to happen. Whether or not they can keep those cases under control and isolated, I don't know. I'm mainly more concerned if we're going to have more Tennessee-Pittsburgh situations where games are going to be postponed or pushed back or however they're going to do it. What does that say for fantasy if games are being pushed to weeks 18, 19, maybe further, depending on if the matchups don't line up?
Yeah, I think it's just bad news bears all around because it's okay to start the season, but if it keeps going and if this is happening late seasons, you might just see them either have to put makeup games or just they can't chalk the games because at the end of the season people have to have comparable stats, or
they could do winning percentage like the MLB did.
I guess it just doesn't feel like the NFL. The NFL, I feel like where there's a will, there's a way. I feel like they're gonna make it happen. The only thing I can conceive of is that they push that one break week between the Super Bowl and the AFC and NFC championships. Just push those together.
Mm-hmm.
I already hated that week as it was because it was just a build-up week and there was just too much analysis on the Super Bowl. But I get it. You want to get everything ready, get people in the stands, get everything prepared for the big game. But I just think that's probably the only option.
And then probably my last controversial one, especially amongst us. I don't think that having at least one handcuff on your team is I won't say it's not a terrible idea. We've already seen what's happened with CMC, Saquon, Mostert, Le'Veon. And while I will say you're obviously not going to get the same value from their backups because they're just you don't have another Saquon, you don't have another CMC. I think I would go for, if I am going to roster one and stash one, it's going to be a guy that's in a good offense or a guy that already is in a The problem with this is there's already the guys who are already in timeshares are probably already rostered because people like there's not that one lead guy like similar to the Austin Ekeler got injured this week. Thankfully, he missed a long out or season-ending injury. But people are heavily rostered Joshua Kelly, Mark Ingram. I mean, that backfield is already cluttered.
Mark Ingram is the backup in that backfield.
And I mean, if you have Kenyon Drake, you're probably already stashing Chase Edmonds. But if you do have room on your bench, for whatever reason, if your league still has kickers, maybe you drop your kicker, pick up somebody who's backing up a premier back in a good offense. I will say that is the thing. If you're picking up the backup for the Giants, you probably don't want to pick up the backup for the Giants. But I think that we've seen so many injuries this year. It's not a terrible. I won't say it's a good idea. I don't think it's a terrible idea to have a backup plan if your star goes down, provided they are in a good offense.
Yeah, I mean, that could be an upside to trading. If you've got the depth on your bench, package it together, get yourself a shiny piece, and then that opens up a spot on your roster. Go pick up one of these guys that is on a better offense, which we'll talk about a couple of guys that we think we should pick up. Some is either, start having some value now, but the waiver's getting drier, so you're looking a lot more at project players where you want to pick them up, stash them, set them on your bench, and see what happens. But no, it goes back to roster management. Know what you can get away with. If you have a blowout on your hands and you're either on either side of a blowout, if you don't need your kicker, just drop them and go pick up somebody. It's a free spot, but that's why you can at least pay attention. So if you've got a league where maybe Atlanta's kicker's open right now, they're playing tonight. If you need them, you can go pick them up. Usually, things like that, use your roster smartly. Like we were talking about that before we got the show starting. It's just one of those things that can really make or break a fantasy season for you.
Yeah, I'm not on the side of drafting or owning handcuffs, particularly if they're your own handcuffs, because there's no upside for that. You're just owning your own offense. You're planning for injury, which is always a dumb move. If you must own handcuffs, own somebody else's handcuffs, because rostering other teams' handcuffs at least gives you upside to multiple backfields. But there's only a handful of handcuffs that are even worth rostering in the first place, and most of those get drafted. So, you hypothetically go out there and just grab every team's backup running back and just be like, I have all of them now. But what are they actually worth? Are they actually going to be the guy if the lead guy goes down? If they are the guy, can they even do the job? They're backups for a reason for the most part, and 85% of the backups are bad. So generally, I disagree. Wasting not everyone is Alexander Madison or Tony Pollard or Kareem Hunt. So
fair enough.
Taylor, what are your three?
Mine not as much as in depth because a lot of this week was just. There was a lot of sad, a lot of bad, but there was still some hype for the hype players, so that's not really newsworthy in my mind. I think the first one is Justin Jefferson. I want to know how to feel about him, but I feel like it's I came out, so I was 2 weeks in a row of 100-plus yards. He's clearly getting targets. He's getting quality use. The kid looks legit from the eye test, but is this just that typical early season rookie pop where he's going to regress when we hit the halfway point, when he hits that rookie wall? I want to be on the side. He should be owned. That's easy. That's an easy floor. He should be owned. He should be on your bench. I think you should start him for his next two matchups because they are on the juicier side.
Seattle and Atlanta.
Seattle and Atlanta. Those should be shootouts. Kirk should have to throw the ball. He shouldn't be able to pull that stunt he pulled to open the season where he only had 5 passes to start and when he was going to the second half. This kid is a dynasty must own. I would go trade for this kid if I can get him. For redraft leagues and daily fantasy, he's a must own. As far as a must start, I don't think we're there yet. I'm not yet at least there to commit. As someone who owns him now, I'm probably going to start him because my other receivers are letting me down. Thank you, Michael Gallup and Slayton.
You're welcome, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you, Frankie, for that. I mostly picked him up just to, block somebody else from picking up wide receivers. But moving on, just in my general feeling of wide receivers, they don't feel good this season. even the top end guys, like it feels like you're just getting a boom game here or there, with the exception of like the very tip top guys, and that's Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf. But after that, I mean, when I'm looking at like for our own league right now, granted some games are still to go, but right now the top 5 guys: Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. There's just so much missing. It's like injury, game script not going there. Like DeAndre Hopkins felt great, but then he's still falling off because he's not getting touchdowns. He's getting lesser usage. Like this feels kind of like last season where it's like you want as many running backs. You don't like the wide receiver position is slipping too close to tight end for me, where I don't feel like there's any great consistency anymore. Like that's why I went for Thielen so hard, because I wanted consistency, and he hasn't been consistent.
I mean, there never really has been consistency at the wide receiver position. On average, pretty much over the last decade, even the top wide receivers are only posting a top 12 game 50% of the time.
Fair. I mean, I think more so what I'm getting back to is when you look at the guys you were taking in those first 2 rounds, the guys you were trying to be like, all right, do I take them over a running back? Your Michael Thomas's, Hopkins. Hopkins is the best example, and he's still not even in the top 5. All these guys who are just underproducing. You got Mike Evans, who's basically just got it. He's so touchdown dependent. It's not even funny this season. And then you've got guys like Odell people were talking about he's a drop candidate, sell, has one big game and people want to get back on. But that's what it feels like wide receivers this year. And I hate it, especially since running back is just getting chopped off at the ankle and the knee every week. I hate it. I want players out there. I want everyone to boom. Like I said, I want more consistency. I want to be able to beat someone because I made the right decisions on players to go with, not because I avoided the landmines.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this earlier when I was writing up my show notes. It's like Michael Gallup's the 23rd ranked wide receiver. It's like I feel there, besides Ridley and Metcalf, there really haven't been those guys who have been. I mean, Metcalf and Ridley are playing out of their minds, but yeah. I mean, obviously they're going to come down. But I feel like as far as wide receivers as a whole, everyone, I don't know if it's the injuries or what it is, but I feel like they're just super inconsistent, like more so than normal. I mean, they've already been inconsistent in general, but I think you're seeing those guys who are irrelevant come into this, or even rookies like Justin Jefferson come into this game, have one big week, and everyone's like, we need to hype this guy up because he's putting up numbers. I don't like it. I think that as we get deeper into the season with people, like we're kind of through with the preseason now, we're going to start to see those more consistent numbers from the guys you expect to see those numbers from.
Yeah, like I said, with the hopes of Michael Thomas and Godwin, now Kenny G's back. Like I think as the perennial floor play guys are coming back, we'll see it balance out. But for right now, I'm not feeling it. I don't like it, and that's what goes back to Justin Jefferson. It's like, is he legit? If this was a normal season, I think I'd have that answer better. He would be a desperate play, but I would put him on the bench to see what he was doing, or just trade him if someone's into the hype train. But just to round up my last point, just to double down on it, just to make sure people know where I feel the Jets are the worst. I think this is probably the worst team I've ever seen play football in my career of watching it. Like
worse than the 0-16 Lions?
I think so. Just because the embarrassment level of it, it's just like the
0-16 Browns.
Just remember, they just lost to Brett Rippon. They let Rippon rip them up. Like they were bad, but like the Lions are bad, but they still had some hope there. Like there was still like Matt Stafford was still there. Like there was still pieces that you were like, I can buy in. Like I believe they still had Megatron when they went 0-16.
Yep.
So like right there was still at least fantasy relevance. This is a team devoid of relevance. Like, because normally when you have a team this bad, maybe there's a wide receiver on there because they have to throw it there that you want. But, like, you look at it, they have Le'Veon Bell. They turned one of the best running backs into a joke. And it's not even because of him. It's because the team is terrible. The coaching is terrible. They're running him. They're just trying to run him forward. And Adam Gase does not have the clarity or the, humility to be like, oh, maybe this is me. Maybe I'm not using my Hall of Fame running back the correct way. And it feels like I'm dealing with the OC before Cliff Kingsbury came in.
Mike McCoy.
with DJ, where it's like, hey, DJ was the number one running back when you were sending him to the outside, sending screens, using his scat back potential. But no, it's like, no, let's just pound it between the tackles. This is how running backs work. And you can look at that with the Jets, where Frank Gore, Le'Veon Bell, very different style running backs, but they're being used in the exact same way.
It's almost like Adam Gase was in.
And he was buddy with who would put in calls for him.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The Dolphins were very smart getting rid of him when they did. The Jets should, like I said, if this continues, I will be shocked if he's their head coach when this season ends.
I think the Jets are still a bad team, but I think that they have more talent than what they're showing right now because Adam Gase just drags everyone down with him. And don't forget, they actually came into the season with more talent than they currently have. Before the season started, Adam Gase traded it all away or let it walk in free agency. A la Robbie Anderson or Jamal Adams.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like they also didn't try to keep their best players.
Yeah, the guy who's like the wide receiver 8 right now. Yes, I remember Robbie Anderson.
We all wonder what was wrong with him. Now we figured it out.
Ian, what do you got for us?
So my first takeaway for our 3 and Out segment is just like, oh my God, the injuries this season. I mean, credit to Jake Seeley for tweeting this out. It's a graphic that he fired out earlier today, but it's a picture of the top 25 draft picks on average so far this year. That's not likely to change. Picture of, on average, the top 25 picks in fantasy football. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are currently missing time. And 11 of them total have missed time this season. And it's significant names too. I mean, Saquon Barkley out for the year, Christian McCaffrey missing 4 to 6 games, Michael Thomas missing the first 4 weeks of football. Nick Chubb and Austin Ekeler both probably going to miss 6 weeks. Chris Godwin feels like he's missed the full season so far. George Kittle, Kenny Golladay, Julio Jones, Miles Sanders, all of them have missed a game or two here and there. Devontae Adams, he's on his second back-to-back game. I mean, it's just like the attrition, and especially the high-level attrition so far this season, has just been brutal. Like, this feels less like a game of skill this year, and more like, did you guess the one player that didn't get hurt? Like, and it's wild too because the players that are getting hurt aren't typically players that get hurt. Like, we haven't seen any injuries to Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara yet, and this also isn't factoring in the injuries that didn't cost people time, like Josh Jacobs or Joe Mixon or DeAndre Hopkins or Kenyon Drake. Like, you factor in those 4 names, and the fact that you probably have to pencil in Dalvin and Alvin for some time off at some point during the season. I mean, you're stuck with just like Zeke, Henry, Clyde, Travis Kelce, Aaron Jones, and then 2 quarterbacks. Like, it's just this is easily the roughest year for injuries that I can recall in the 11 years that I've been playing fantasy football. Like, there's always a couple high-profile injuries, but this just feels like there's someone with like a hit list out there, just like doing voodoo in a basement, just stabbing players in their Achilles and hamstring and knee.
We've never seen this in the history of
this is insane.
Yeah, because normally, like I said, you always pick out. There's always just a couple unlucky players that happen to catch that ACL tear.
Yeah,
and then there's a couple that just have the nagging injuries, and like that's you prepare for that. You try and hope it's not your guys, but you draft for depth. And then there's usually a couple guys like on top of that, all these injuries. There's still guys on that list who are underperforming. Kenyon Drake being one, Joe Mixon until this big game here.
Yeah,
So even if you avoid it, you might have still been the guy who went Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake, and you might be 0-3. Maybe you just got to win because of Joe Mixon, but you're 0-3 going into this game because they were underperforming, and maybe one of your wide receivers, maybe AJ Brown has been out for you, and you've just been without players. So this is just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I went into the season thinking I was sitting pretty at running back. Saquon Barkley, Austin Ekeler, Jonathan Taylor. I was deep with high-profile talent, and now 2/3 of it is gone. And there's a lot of, we talked about it last week too, but there's a lot of fantasy managers out there in the same boat as me, where it's just like, what are you supposed to do with this? So it's just, please fantasy football Jesus, stop the injuries. Give us some respite. Past that, you touched on the underperforming players so far this year. Sometimes the underperforming players aren't even the players' fault. There were some very confusing game scripts this past week. Like industry-wide, Darrell Henderson, can't miss lock, play of the century. Oh, except he absolutely flopped. He was like one of the most consensus misses that I've seen in recent memory. Like I don't think there was a single person being like, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't start Darrell Henderson, but he had a bad week. Or like Jonathan Taylor, who just for some reason had like equal carries with Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins, even though like Jordan Wilkins I believe was under 2 yards a carry. Nyheim Hines is at like 2.2 yards a carry. Like ineffective, and Frank Reich's not an idiot, but Frank Reich was still just throwing him out there like, I don't know, let's see what this Jordan Wilkins guy's got. I know he spent a second round pick on Jonathan Taylor, but he's only averaging 4.4 yards per carry this game, so let's put him on the bench. Like, what is going on? Can coaches just start their high-profile rookies that are playing well and let them tote the rock? Or, I guess in Darrell Henderson's case, he's not a rookie, but he's close enough where it's like, they have talent. You drafted them for a reason. Play them.
I think this goes back to your first point, which is the injury. I think that, they were even talking about, aside from this, Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones getting less reps tonight because they are battling those injuries. So that's the only thing I can really think of.
Sure, but Darrell Henderson and Jonathan Taylor aren't battling injuries, and they're both young guys.
Yeah, I think that's the other part where it's like people want to say, oh, they're resting him for the later in the season. You don't want to overwork him, which I get it. You don't want to give Jonathan Taylor 30 carries in a game. It'd be nuts.
Sure.
But you gave 19 carries to the backups who were underperforming. It makes no sense. Like, running back already has a short shelf life, and you're shortening it by trying to rest them when they're their youngest, their healthiest.
Yeah.
And, like, I could see you could just give him, like, 22, 23, give him some more passing work, and, like, or at least just give him consistent carries. Don't put him out there for a couple carries, then put him on the bench, then bring him back. Like, let him establish some rhythm. Like, geez.
Especially with the guy, both of these guys are downhill runners. It's like if you're just like cycling them in and out, you're costing them the ability to get into a game flow. Like,
yeah, you're letting the defense rest by getting these 1.1, 2 yard
look what Tennessee does with Derrick Henry, and just mimic that. Just let them run forward like a bowling ball and just destroy people. And then finally, this was just a little bit of a jab at Frankie, as well as it's just something I find hilarious because the NFC. Everyone always makes fun of the AFC East for being the worst division in football, but I feel like the NFC East skates by.
No, it's regular.
They are so effing bad. Oh my! Like, how is the 1-3 Eagles the division leaders?
Excuse me, 1-2-1.
No, a tie doesn't count. They are 1-3. I don't care that they have a tie, and so they're technically in the lead. They are 1-3, and they are somehow leading that division. Like, how? The Eagles are missing half their team. They have more missing players than the Titans, who just had COVID. Like, how are the Eagles winning the NFC East right now? This is insane. Like, it's not like there are bad teams in the NFC East either. I mean, sure, the Giants had some high-profile injuries, but, like, they should still be able to compete, especially in this putrid division they're in. The Cowboys, going into the season, we were like, they should be a top 5 team in the NFC. Not the NFC East, the NFC as a whole. The Cowboys are like, you mean bottom 5, right? Like, what is going on? How do any of these teams still have coaches? They should all be fired. Clean them out. Fire the owners while you're at it.
I mean, I agree that I think the Cowboys are just catching the worst string of luck, but it is just funny on a non-Cowboys fan just to poke fun at the fact that the Eagles are so terrible yet leading their division. I mean, we've seen it before when the Panthers would make the playoffs with 4 wins, 5 wins.
Or when the Rams made it when they were 7-9.
Yeah, like we see this terrible thing all the time, and just to point it out because it's itching in the back of my brain. They actually did a study from 2000s all the way up. I believe this came out before the 2019 season. They took out the top team in each division and then did their win-loss percentage. The AFC East actually was number 1 if you take out all the top teams.
Oh yeah, I know. I've seen that before too.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember when the Patriots were getting rounded by the Jets and Mark Sanchez.
Yeah, the Patriots.
For that one
the Patriots
season.
are equal.
And when they were getting destroyed by Baltimore.
The Patriots are equal opportunity ass beaters.
Yeah, like I said, that's my one nugget I had to throw in there because everyone, like I said, that's whenever people bring up the AFC East, they're just like, well, then why are they the best?
Also,
but anyways,
I misspoke. I was a little too harsh on the NFC East. Ron Rivera doesn't deserve to be fired. He just got the job. Everyone else,
just got the job.
Get him out. Yeah, McCarthy was a bad hire in the first place.
While I don't disagree, we have played what I would call 2 top 5 offenses.
I don't care. Jerry should see the writing on the wall here and be like, "Oh, I made him like Job from Arrested Development. Like I've made a terrible mistake." That's just that. Like it blows my mind how bad the football is in that division.
It's not.
All right, let's move on to some waivers. We got some fun choices for you guys this week. I'm just going to roll through streaming quarterbacks. We'll talk about running back a little bit and wide receiver a little bit, and then I'll just roll through tight end and DST. Our top streamers of the week for quarterback this week, if you are in need, there are some interesting options out there. Ryan Tannehill versus Buffalo, 37% owned. He is getting A.J. Brown back this week, and he's shown a propensity for throwing so far this season, so he's our top pick if you need a streaming option. After him, Teddy B versus Atlanta, 9.8% owned. He's looked pretty good so far. He's had some fantasy success through the air, to that number 1 guy established in his system, Robbie Anderson. Hopefully this could be a little bit of a get-right game for DJ Moore, who's been very up and down this season. So he's someone who I think if you're hurting at wide receiver and you want to try and go get a buy low guy, there's a chance the DJ Moore manager might be willing to part with him for a sack of warm hamburgers. So go kick the tires on that one. But I think that one could be a pretty fun game to watch. Should be a lot of airing it out and bad defense. And then Kirk Cousins is our final one. He gets Seattle this week. He's only 15% owned. He's going to have to throw to keep up with Seattle. So while he might not be the most exciting option in the world, Justin Jefferson is emerging as what looks like a legitimate second option to Adam Thielen. Dalvin is still Dalvin. I think there's enough there in that offense. Obviously, Frankie, you agree with me where it's like, it's worth it to roll him out there. There's a chance that he has a very high fantasy total because he's going to have to throw to keep up with Russ.
Well, you're forgetting about the best part. He gets a twofer. He gets Russ in Seattle, and then he also gets Atlanta the week after.
True. He does get Atlanta the week after, so he's a nice 2-week streamer if you can go grab him. Running back, our top ad this week, he is finally rostered in 56.2% of leagues, but given the high-profile nature of Ekeler's injury, we're still listing him as our top guy, and the fact that he's very close to that 50% mark. Joshua Kelly, the second time being featured in our waiver show as the top ad, and the third time overall in the waiver show. So hopefully you've listened to us by this point. We don't know for certain that he's going to be the lead guy, but he's gotten the work behind Ekeler to this point. It wouldn't shock me if it is a bit of a timeshare, maybe like 60-40 Kelly Jackson, but I mean, I'm deep in the Kelly camp, so I'm not going to recommend Jackson over him.
You don't say.
I am glad that I've held on to him to this point. It's going to be a little bit of rough sledding, but this coming week. But he does have a nice slew of matchups coming up after this week, so it should be some easy games for him. Are you guys on the Joshua Kelly bandwagon, or are you pumping up Justin Jackson, who's our number 2 ad?
I mean, between the two, I'll stick with Kelly for now. But Kelly, I know the fumble that he had wasn't against him, and the coaching staff seemed to agree by still continuing to use him. But
that was a bad handoff.
It was bad.
They put that Herbert put that ball on his shoulder pad.
Yeah, when we watched that, we immediately were just like, that wasn't a great handoff.
I thought I saw it in quick. I was like, that looked like that was a rough handoff. And they showed it. The ball was like here. I was like, you can't blame that on him. That was Herbert just not putting it in the breadbasket.
Yeah, like I said, it was off his shoulder, so it's he's still a little bit because at the end of the day, you got to get on that ball and keep it.
Yeah,
but I think the team showed us that they're willing to keep using him. What I'm more worried about is his production overall in that game. I think it's his job to lose, but the team clearly wants to use him over Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson?
Yeah. There's too many J's. Justin Jackson, sorry.
I don't know about you guys, but I've never heard Ian mention Joshua Kelly before.
Yeah. Did Stan Lee author like half the names in the NFL right now? There's a lot of alliteration. Kelly's obviously not alliteration, but
yeah. Well, no, we talked about this before too, where Stanley likes the alliteration or the alliteration, the next number or next letter. Rather.
A little alliteration or two first names.
Yeah.
Two first names, always a crowd pleaser. Justin Jackson, he's who I would go get if you can't get Joshua Kelly, just because like Nick Chubb does have the, I guess, shorter potential timeout because he is just an MCL sprain and he only has to miss 3 weeks. They're saying 3 to 6 for him, whereas Eckler's 4 to 6. He's looking for a second option, but so obviously he thinks he can get back quicker. But aside from them, it's D'Ernest Johnson as our only other really startable running back ad this week. I'm not really interested in him. If I might use like 5, maybe 10% of fab unless I'm like absolutely just brutalized at running back.
Yeah,
because I don't believe that D'Ernest Johnson is gonna be a big part of their game plan going forward, and I don't think that he's going to have the same level of fantasy success against opponents that aren't the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think that, even if the Browns do want to use a 2-back like rotation, I think that they're obviously going to feature Kareem Hunt more. A couple of years ago he was the number one guy. Like he's definitely shown he can be that guy, and he definitely has the talent to do it. This week he put up numbers, and that was with Chubb playing some of the game. I think that D'Ernest is like, he's kind of one of those middling guys where it's if you need a running back, don't blow your fab budget on him. But if you can get him cheap and maybe slot him in there as a flex on a Hail Mary play while Chubb's gone, why not?
Well, that's what I mean when I'm saying it's like you're likely going to get a dud with him. Like, do you guys disagree there?
Yeah. So I was gonna say for D'Ernest, I think he is a project player. That's a guy you pick up. Like, he should be picked up if you've got the spot for him. And I would put him on your bench, see what he does. Because this week is going to be telling. They say they want to use 2 running backs. Let's see if they just change up the game scheme now that Chubb's not there, or if D'Ernest has enough in the tank to at least be the supporting back in a run-heavy team. If he is, then he's worth something. If he's not, then you drop him.
Yeah, absolutely. But really, because I just picked up the schedule real fast for the Chargers, so I could tell you guys exactly what it is. So like I said, this coming week, it's not a great one. They get the Saints, but then after that, it's Jets, Dolphins, Jaguars, Raiders, Broncos. So it's pretty nice sledding after this matchup against the Saints. So I'm really, if you need a running back, if you just lost Ekeler or Chubb, I'm comfortable starting Kelly or Jackson for basically the next 6 weeks of Charger football. Wide receiver, our top ad this week again is Hunter Renfrow. He's 36% owned. He's been getting a lot of targets. Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards are probably going to miss again this week, so he's another good spot start. Other ones we had in there: Scotty Miller, T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault, all available in basically 25% or more of leagues. I'm sorry, 75% of leagues. I was reading the percentage backwards. There we go. Which of those 4 are you guys prioritizing as your top ad? For me, it's probably T. Higgins, honestly,
I'm in the same boat.
as my preferred wide receiver ad. I think that T. Higgins presents the best chance for like actual season value and not just a spot start. Whereas, Scotty Miller and Hunter Renfroe, they're just the starters for now.
Yeah, Scotty Miller kind of looked shiny to begin the season, but obviously Godwin's going to come back at some point. So
yeah, Godwin and Evans aren't going to be hurt forever, and I don't believe
excited.
that Jacksonville can support 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
I want to go T. Higgins, but I don't feel like that offense is clicking enough to get there. I wanted it to be Greg Ward just because he's the only show in town, so I figured maybe with the amount that they want to pass, that would be something, but it's shown that that's not going to be productive. He is not a good enough receiver yet to produce for that team, so not happy about it, but I guess my vote is also T. Higgins.
Okay, so if T. Higgins is out there, go grab him. After him, I'd probably go Laviska Shenault because at least his value isn't tied to an injury. And then Scotty Miller and Hunter Renfroe, I guess, just in order of like who has the better offense around them. Tight end, there's basically just one option. If you haven't found your tight end yet, you should probably trade for one or accept that you aren't going to have one. It is Dalton Schultz, 32% owned. He is getting a ton of work with the Cowboys. It seems like the Cowboys have lost their interest in Michael Gallup because they have this obviously very talented tight end that they loved a lot, and his name is Dalton Schultz, and he was definitely the starter this entire time. Blake Jarwin, who?
Yeah, he's looked really good out there.
I think what this tells me, honestly, is that Blake Jarwin was going to have a massive role in this offense, and Blake Jarwin went down, and they were like, well, let's just force the roll onto the next guy because our offense is predicated on the tight end.
And this goes back to my earlier point.
Maybe not predicated, but like it seems like it's heavily tied to it at least.
And if this goes back to my earlier point too. Obviously we're going to plan for regression with Dak, but if he's throwing the ball 54 times a game, that's plenty of opportunities for him to put up some numbers.
Yeah, like I said, this is that's one thing I've noticed this week is the Blake Jarwin truthers have come out waving the flag real hard. Like, see, he was basically the tight end one. Like, I agree, he definitely has that value, and I'm interested for him when he comes back. But I'm more worried that now for Jarwin because this guy, Schultz, shown out and has proved that he deserves some look next year. So I could see them moving to a system where they use these 2 guys, and I think they're just going to kill one receiver's value, and I think we already know that receiver is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you feel bad for Jarwin a bit, but with how Schultz is looking, if he continues this through the full season, it's hard to take away the job from a guy like that who, exemplify the next man up thing and went out there and won you a bunch of games. And then really the only defense worth grabbing that is widely available this week is Arizona versus the Jets, 42% owned. Hopefully you are not streaming defenses this week because this is one of those weeks where if you didn't prepare for it ahead of time, and that's why we always do a week ahead defensive stash so you have a chance to. If you didn't prepare for it ahead of time, not a lot out there. Honestly, if you need a defensive starter this week, I'd prepare to spend some fab on Arizona. I don't normally recommend spending fab on a defense, but they're it. Like if you're competing with other people for a defensive streamer this week, they're the only one. All the other options are bad. Maybe you want to start. The Bills haven't looked like a good defense. Maybe you want to try and roll the Bills out there against Tennessee, missing 10 players because of COVID, but I wouldn't.
I may be in that unfortunate situation in one league.
Or like maybe you roll out the Cowboys defense against New York, as Frankie has put forward, but I would not do that, even though New York has looked bad. Like so have the Cowboys. Like there's just the bad matchups are either going against defenses that are owned, or they're going against defenses that are terrible. So
yeah, I hate all the plays defenses. Honestly, I think a strategy you could look into if you're trying to move for something, you can get cheeky with it, and maybe there's a team who's holding 2 defenses, and they have whatever one's on their bench you like. You trade them like, let's do like a little minor trade, maybe some bench players, and you take a bench player and you're just like, can you throw in that defense for me? And maybe you overpay a little bit in the trade to get that defense, but that might be worth it for you if you have one. If you're just sitting there looking at like, wow, I don't have one of the premier defenses. Like,
one thing I will say, keep an eye on your waiver wire, because if a defense like the Chicago Bears gets dropped, you may want to, because there's a chance they end up on the wire. They are the home defense this week on a Thursday game. If you can get your hands on them and plug them in, they'd probably be our like shot in the dark, just targeting the situation, not the actual defense play.
Yeah, well, while Brady did just put up 5 touchdowns, he has thrown 4 pick sixes, so that's money for a defense that could carry your week just that one play.
Yep.
So clearly Brady's still turnover prone, and those running backs are banged up, so you might get hurt on points. So if your defenses get really punished for giving up points, you might want to go the other way. But if you can make your hay off of turnovers and sacks, you might be able to get something done.
Yeah. They just lost O.J. Howard for the season. They might not have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Like that's a spot where it's the flow chart is just start your home defenses on Thursday night games, and if you can, they're 72% owned right now, so you might not be able to get your hands on them, but if you can, they're probably your shot in the dark. Well, that'll do it for us this week, unless you guys have any other thoughts.
The Cowboys' disrespect was hurtful, but I understand.
You should write a strongly worded letter to Jerry Jones then expressing your displeasure in their play. Before we sign off, make sure to follow us on socials, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share us everywhere with your friends, with your enemies, put us on for your pets while you're at work, whatever. All the exposure we can get helps, and the more followers and the more view time that we get, the more content we can put out for you guys. So hopefully you didn't get hurt too bad this past week, and for anyone counting on a Monday night miracle, I hope it goes your way.
Even me?
No, not you. And we'll see you guys all on Thursday.